Hey, everybody. Were you going to say something?
Hello.
Oh, hello.
I was gonna
Okay.
say hello.
Okay.
Is that okay?
It was just such a deep intake. I wasn't sure what was
I was
going to
just
happen.
I wanted to
Oh, man.
What happened?
Hold on. Let me in here.
Okay.
We're having problems with Rumble, and
Ruh-roh.
I'd like to fix it before we really get going, but if I can't, I can't. So why does this happen? All right. Well, you know what I can do is where are we?
I wish I had something to say, but I feel like if I say anything it'll distract you.
Hey everybody, I'm gonna pull our video down for 1 minute and try and fix this, and then I'll be back. We'll come back in 1 to 2 minutes whether I fix it or not. So see you in a minute. All right, we're back. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, there's something wrong with Rumble right now. I don't think it's on my end, but either way, we're gonna do this live stream just for youtube.com/moment of clarity and on my Facebook. So thank you all for joining us. I'll upload this later to Rumble, unfortunately. But anyway, that being said, let's try and pretend that this is a normal episode and everything's going fine.
Well, we can make it a normal episode from now, except for your switch to Rumble.
Yes, and we can upload it to Rumble later. So we'll pretend it's beginning now. Hello, everybody. God, these things are so easy to run. I can't believe I've got everything perfect. I'm joined by none other than Eleanor Goldfield.
None other.
None other.
Just me.
There are not multiple here. We're going to get into why the U.S. right now wants to deindustrialize Europe. We're going to get into that topic. We're going to get into culture jamming the war machine. That's a fun one. We're going to get into some terrible news about Rikers Island, which is amazing that they could still pump out terrible news.
There's never actually good news.
You'd think we'd heard it all about Rikers Island.
There is some good news coming in this show, though. Also from New York, as it happens. But
yes, we have some good news on the labor front.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so I thought because this one will be a little lighter, a little funner, it's actually a very short story. I thought we'd start with this and then we'll get to the deindustrialization of Europe, because just the number of syllables in that word is fucking
heavy.
Killing me. It's heavy. It's heavy. So let's start with this one. It's a little more fun and pretty short. It's basically Uh, this is written by Rivera's son for World Bond War and reprinted by popularresistance.org. And it's about culture jamming the war machine. And they only give one or two examples, but I would love for everyone else to brainstorm in the chat about ways to culture jam the war machine. And culture jamming, many of you may know, is kind of upending our cultural programming, upending usually advertisements and the shit that is pumped into our eyeballs and our earballs. I know anatomy. So, so here is what they recommend, and I love this one. They're giving their personal experience. I yank up in drizzling rain. I yank up the military recruitment signs and throw them into the tall grass on the side of the road. If anyone asks, I didn't destroy government property. I merely relocated it. Think of me like a windstorm, a peace-loving, non-violent windstorm countering military recruitment. And then they go into, you don't know the number of the results of such a small action. Let's say you find 10 of those signs, and they say later that it's a rural area, so there's not that many of the ads. It's not like New York City or something. And so these are pretty rare ads, but these are ads for join the military. And they take them and they throw them into the bushes. You don't know whether you could have saved a couple of lives there.
Yeah.
Like people that didn't join the military because they didn't see a myriad of ads saying, "Hey, military's fun. Military's awesome. You're gonna do cool stuff for your country.
Travel.
You get to travel the world." I love that one. As if anyone wants to travel the world and be commanded from place to place. Like the hours you have to wake up. Could you imagine anyone doing tourism like that?
Well, and who wants to tour a military base?
Well, that too, yeah.
Like it's not a fucking spa.
You don't want gruel.
Actually, this reminds me of something similar that a friend of mine did, she was actually in the army, and she and a couple of other veteran friends had decided that they were going to do the career day at school, because the military is always at career day in like pretty much every high school, but predominantly in low income high schools, right?
Oh yeah, they're there a lot.
And so they decided that they were going to have the honest army table instead of what they usually have, which is they get to travel the world, you get free education, all this other bullshit. And so they had like the honest table set up where it was like, you will end up with PTSD and you will murder people for no fucking reason other than oil. And it was like so amazing. And of course, after a while, the administration gets wise to the fact that they're there uninvited and like forces them to leave, which then in and of itself is a story, because they're forcing actual veterans out of their school
and honesty
because they're telling the truth about what it's like to be in the fucking military. Chef's kiss to that kind of activism and that kind of, I mean, it's culture jamming as well, but like these kind of actions, particularly by people who have a specific relationship with the armed forces, I think is really powerful.
Yeah, I love that one. So far we have take the signs and throw them in the bushes. We have set up the honesty table next to the military recruitment table. And one I saw it in Coney Island, weirdly. One of the few times I lived in New York for 12 years. I went there like twice, but one of the few times I actually went to Coney Island, they had basically I don't know what the sign said. It was like, see how manly you are in a pull-up contest. And they had a bunch of young guys doing pull-up contests. They'd set up a pull-up bar, and these guys, you had a bunch of guys with their, tats and no shirt on, and they were like, I'm going to win this. And really, it was a military, because it was like right next to the military recruitment. Basically, they'd wait to see who won the pull-up contest,
like, hey.
and they'd say to the winner, "Oh, you'd be perfect to be in the military and really do something with that muscle, man." And they'd say to the loser, "Do you want to be a little better and make something of yourself? You'll be winning pull-up contests in no time and winning over those women. You see the pull-up women that are waiting right over there, like
pull-up women."
And so it was just like garbage like that. But could you imagine if there was a little kiosk next to them that's like, hey, that's all bullshit. Yeah. Your fucking pull-ups don't matter. Yeah. You're going to be killing people that you don't know and can't even speak their language.
Trauma for the rest of your life.
Trauma for the rest of your life. You know, and we don't have to go through all the fucking harms of our war machine, the largest. And by the way, we really don't call it you really shouldn't call it the Department of Defense anymore. You should call
Not
it
defending anyone.
the largest machine for organized mass human murder.
Mhm.
And you can't prove that's incorrect. That's absolutely true. It's just that's not the part they like to highlight usually. But you know, there's plenty of other culture jamming. Some of it illegal, some of it not. But you know, one that's not illegal that's certainly fun is you just take all the books by the war criminals. You know, Cheney and Bush and Rumsfeld and Obama and Joe Biden. You take all their books at the Barnes and Noble and you just put it in the true crime section. Just so you, I used to do that one. Just so you say big sign, true crime, and right below it, it's just, you know, Joe Biden being like, I'm gonna build back better, or whatever the fuck his book was called.
I saw somebody, I guess it must have been like a Target or someplace that sells like home items as well as books, and somebody had put Sarah Palin's book next to the toilet plungers.
I like that. But anyway, I would love for everybody in the comment section right now, throw in some of your own if you have any of these culture jamming efforts to change our culture, to change the way we speak about these things. Some could be a language thing. You know, that's maybe not as cool as ripping signs out of the ground. But I just mentioned not saying the Department of Defense. Everybody, you can feel free to throw in your own language choices for how to talk about these things, because language creates the way a lot of people believe. It creates our social engineering. So when we walk around saying Department of Defense, there's plenty of people that literally believe that what the U.S. military does is just defense. I mean, when was the last time they did defense?
I think this is I actually wanted to quote this a while back, but this was if folks aren't familiar with the Zinn Education Project on Instagram, they do kind of like this day in history posts and
named after Zen, like meditation.
Okay.
No, named after Howard Zinn. Someone just pointed out I'm not live on Rumble. That is correct. Something has gone wrong with Rumble. I'm going to have to upload this later. Sorry.
Apologies.
Howard Zinn, great historian and philosophical leader of a lot of wonderful activism.
So they pointed out on December 8th, which is after the day of Pearl Harbor, 1941, Montana Congresswoman Jeanette Rankin was the only member of Congress to vote against declaring war on Japan. And one of her quotes was that she said, quote, "There can be no compromise with war. It cannot be reformed or controlled, cannot be disciplined into decency or codified into common sense. For war is the slaughter of human beings, temporarily regarded as enemies on as large a scale as possible."
Temporarily regarded as enemies.
And I think that is a very powerful and poignant way of putting it. And so the idea that the DoD does anything that even comes close to defense is fucking ridiculous.
Damn straight. So keep culture jamming in mind, folks. It's a nice way to like on a daily basis be a part of the solution and throw a wrench in the gears of the problem, of the fucking problem. Now, don't use it as a release valve where you throw away one sign and then you decide you never need to do anything else. Use it as a release valve like you were gonna drive your car into a bridge abutment and now you decide not to because you got to shit on that sign. Anyway, let's move on to would you rather do deindustrializing Europe for next or Rikers?
Oh God.
Letting you make the call.
Let's do the deindustrialization. Look, that's like 14 syllables too many for me right now. I need like C-spot run type shit.
All right. So this is a great article by moderndiplomacy.eu. Eric, how do you say that? Zeus?
I like Zeus because, come on.
Zeus with an elongated
If that was
S.
my last name, I would always say it's Zeus, like the god, okay?
But it's got two S's, so I would go Zeus.
Zeus.
And you fade out like a balloon letting out the air.
Zweesy? I mean, you tell me.
I don't know. All right. So anyway, excellent article there. I'm not gonna like do every word for word, but I hope we'll get to the heart of this. Um, he says imperialism has been and always is control of foreign governments. Prior to the 1991 end of the Soviet Union, American imperialism used its European colonies, called allies, and which any empire's colonies or vassal nations, vassal means feudal, like underling, vassal nations necessary will be quote unquote allies, since the colonies' foreign policies are always controlled by the imperial nation. The US tells Europe right now, most of it, what their foreign policy is. Yep. So they become allies. Anyway, he says America's imperialism used its European colonies as providing military bases and as being markets for US manufactured goods. However, increasingly after 1991, fall of the Soviet Union, the second priority of using Europe as the biggest market for US goods and services declined. On October 9, 2018, the St. Louis Federal Reserve published Understanding the Roots of the U.S. Trade Deficit. And I'm not going to give all the details of that, but basically, it says that U.S. manufacturing jobs were being transferred to places like China. We all know that, not to places like Germany. The lowered labor costs by manufacturing in underdeveloped countries were adding to the wealth of owners of America's international corporations. Most people know that, right? We get things made, we get t-shirts made for 5 cents by someone in Bangladesh or China or something, 5 cents an hour, 5 cents a garment, whatever. And therefore, yeah, you technically employ all these people overseas, but you de-employ all these people in America, right? I mean,
and let's be honest, the employment isn't exactly fair. And
right. No, they treat them like shit over there in various countries. But on top of that, as those things get shipped overseas, all these people here in America now have no way to afford their lives, right? So that's been going on for years. That's no shock to you guys. So in a key passage in that study by that Fed, one of the Federal Reserves, which pertained to President Richard Nixon having gotten American off the gold standard and onto its replacement, the oil standard. So right now we're on the oil standard, right? We're the petrodollar. We used to be on the gold standard. Nixon took us off. But the reason we did that was because we wanted to be able to print as much money as we wanted, which we can do now that we're on the petrodollar. If you had to back every dollar by gold, you couldn't just print every dollar you want to. The current international monetary system based on the US dollar as the dominant world reserve currency and US government securities as the most sought after store of value is the root cause of persistent trade deficits in the US. The extreme, and then he gets into the fact that our economy has become heavily militarized. Do you want to speak for a moment about the amount of money we make from military?
The amount of money we make?
Yeah, not you and I.
You mean the amount of money that goes into it?
The amount of money the rich make from military, like the fucking investors in Lockheed Martin.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the surest bet. I mean, and there are oftentimes, you'll see this on like economy shows, like CNN economics and shit like that. They always tell you invest in arms because
it's reliable.
It is. I mean, it's so fucked, but it's true because that will never. I'm not going to say never because all empires fall, but this is a sure bet for the foreseeable future because they get more money every year. It's the only thing that has steadily increased consistently, regardless of recessions, regardless of depressions. It doesn't fucking matter. The military, and therefore the military industrial complex, all the corporations, are always making more money every year. So yeah, of course it's a sure investment. You're a fucking sick fuck if you invest in it. But yeah, absolutely. Murdering children and taking over entire sovereign nations all over the world is an absolute sure bet for the largest empire the world has ever seen. Of course it is.
It's a growth industry.
It is.
A growth industry as we bomb other countries.
The same way a tumor is a growth industry.
So as the U.S. after 2001, the U.S. the economy became increasingly militarized, meaning our military was a larger and larger and military-industrial complex. Obviously, right? All the weapons contractors, everything that's involved in war games, all this shit. It increasingly became a larger and larger part of our economy. And he then says. He then says the extreme militarization of America's economy and thus the increased importance to the American economy of those manufacturing jobs, which relied upon the continued and increasingly important European military market. Consequently, America needed to increase and further its grip over European governments because we needed Europe to continue to fall in line with all of our foreign policy. And our foreign policy was now to begin a Cold War against Russia and China.
Well, and to also increase colonialism, like the coalition of the willing.
Yeah.
Which always sounded so creepy to me.
That was for Iraq, right?
Yeah, it always sounded so terrifying. It's like, it sounds like the opposite. It's like, walking into like a fraternity being like, these ladies are the coalition of the willing, right? And these women are just like, that's what it sounds like. It sounds fucking terrifying.
It's like, yeah, it'd be like a dorm room that just says, like, across the top of the door, I consent.
Right.
It's like, why'd you have to put that there?
Yeah.
Why'd you have to say?
Because if I don't, I can. Yeah.
Why'd you have to? Yeah. So consequently, America needed to further its grip, and therefore must treat them more openly, meaning European states, more openly and more boldly. Such as America and UK's joint operation of blowing up the Nord Stream pipelines of Russia's energy supplies into Europe. Many of you, I hope, know that the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipelines between Russia and Germany, but it would have brought Russian gas via pipeline to much of Europe. But that blowing up is now kind of undeniably connected to the US and the UK. And in fact, so much so that the Prime Minister Liz Truss, who is already not the Prime Minister, she was there for 42 hours.
If you would have looked away for a second, you would have missed it.
She was there for just a moment. But during that time, she managed to send a text on an unencrypted phone that got hacked and revealed. The text was to Anthony Blinken, our Secretary of State, our belligerent war hawk Secretary of State. And the text said, within hours of when the Nord Stream was blown up and before it had publicly been announced to any news network, she texted him and said, "It's done." So,
and even without that, there's plenty of commentary. There's even Biden saying that he was going to do it, and other U.S. officials saying that was something that they were going to look at. So, I mean, it's so clear.
Biden back in February and March said we need to stop that pipeline, and we will.
And I also got to just point out that Russia would not blow up its own pipeline because that's fucking dumb. Like,
multi-billion-dollar.
Just use common sense, people. Like, whenever. I love this about like media literacy. Some of it really is quite simple. You just use common sense. Like, would you blow up a pipeline that you spent billions of dollars on in the midst of a war that's sucking up a lot of your resources?
Unlikely. But yes, what you're referring to, for those who don't know, Joe Biden back in, it was either February, March. So right as this thing was popping off, so to speak, said we will be stopping. We need to stop that pipeline, and we will. And the reporters said, well, that's a pipeline between Russia and Germany. What if Germany don't want to stop it? And Biden just smirks and goes, we have ways. I mean, it's like he basically was admitting to, we can bomb the fucking thing. So let me get back to the statement. He says, therefore, the U.S. must treat them more openly and more boldly as being banana republics, and to do whatever is needed in order to get these governments to comply with U.S. demands. Now, he's making a difference between banana republics, where essentially the U.S. controls their government, versus the kind of lesser state that's an ally, so which still has some sovereignty. Banana republics essentially have zero sovereignty. And his argument is that's what's happening right now. And I've seen this argument before. I've mentioned it several times that that's what's happening right now. Europe is being forced. I didn't use the term deindustrialization, but I said forced back into a kind of a feudal vassal system. I don't know, but back, I guess, kind of back into after World War II. But and he says Barack Obama came to office in 2009. He promptly reoriented U.S. foreign policy toward old Cold War targets, anti-Russia, anti-China planning policies. This required him and Joe Biden to force Europe to commit to anti-Russia and anti-China policies against their own economic benefit. Like, they benefit tremendously by having economic ties with Russia and China. So it required to split the world into renewed Cold War without any need for ideological, quote, anti-communist excuse, because the anti-communist excuse didn't work anymore, right? Russia's not communist. And his last piece, he says, the only way to do this is to deindustrialize Europe. So that is now happening. Europe is to become more of America's banana republics. That's why the Biden administration is determined to take manufacturing jobs away from Europe. And I was looking up the various, definitions of deindustrialization, because there's different ways to talk about it. And I'd say the clearest one for this discussion is the decline in output of manufactured good or employment of the manufacturing sector. So, I mean, it's turning Europe into a far less economically stable, economically healthy system, a system where people will be struggling far more, where governments, as they're struggling to even get energy to people, like the heating and shit like that, that they're going to be cutting resources, right? It's called, the friendly term is austerity. So they're going to be cutting things like healthcare and daycare and all these things, elder care. And it like, that is what the US is pushing towards. And he kind of hints at it. I actually think he doesn't emphasize enough the fact that the US sees the rise of China as an existential threat and therefore needed to basically split the world's economies. If you're going to split the world's economies into Russia and China on one side, US and Western on the other, you have to get all of the West to get in line with that. And most of them didn't want to be a part of that initially.
So just to kind of piggyback on what you were talking about, that people wouldn't have basic needs met. There is listen, The Guardian is balls. They are basically like an outlet that's been taken over by the neoliberal mindset.
It's been captured. Yeah.
And I find that just the fact that they have this series with this kind of kitschy, cute name about the fact that people are dying because they don't have heating. It's called the Heat or Eat Diaries.
What?
No, I'm serious. The Guardian has the Heat or Eat Diaries.
And what are they exactly? That's horrifying.
It's dispatches from the front lines of Britain's cost of living emergency.
Why don't they just call it Hunger Games?
Or what? Like, Heat or Eat? Why are you giving it this fucking cute name?
I don't know.
Like, that is so fucked. And it's all these horrifying stories, like the 60-year-old woman who like can't feel her toes. People that are worried that their kid's gonna die of frostbite. It's like, what the fuck?
They have a roof over your head, or eat your neighbor's dog diaries.
Dude, it is so dystopian. And like, this just this is an example of the sort of like marriage of a neoliberal perspective and the issue, the problem of neoliberalism, which is, of course, you could say, oh my gosh, but they're reporting on the problem. Okay, so they're reporting on the problem, but at no point are they saying, holy fuck, how fucked is this? Right. Like, what the fuck? Why is there even something called the Heat or Eat Diet? We should be lighting bankers on fire in order to warm our homes. This is fucking insane.
That's what they should title it. Let's start lighting bankers on fire to heat your home diaries.
Right. But the problem with this is, like, this kind of reporting normalizes it to the point where we see this and we're like, oh, that's a bummer. But it's so common, like, oh, that sucks this winter. Maybe we'll hope that it gets better next winter, but okay. Like, it normalizes this kind of suffering. And, as this guy points out, it's absolutely purposeful and will likely only get worse. But yeah, I just had to share that because I read that and I'm like, I'm sorry, what? You're Dr. Seussing this whole fucking nightmare.
Right. Right. Well, again, maybe they'll have recipes on how to eat your small dogs soon. So
I mean,
there's that.
But I don't think you get much meat off of them.
No, not much. And it'll be sad to
Kind of
see.
like squirrels. Like there's not much meat on there.
It'll be sad to see the little bedazzled collar on the plate. Yes, it will.
I think you take that off first. But that wouldn't work with your joke, so I get
it. So anyway, I highly recommend you check out this article. There's more details in it than I went into. But like, I think this point needs to be stressed a lot because there are a lot of Europeans right now that are, and I'm not talking about the governments. The governments have their own, motivations for doing this shit. But average people that think that getting behind the United States right now is the right thing to do, and it's because you care about people. It's fucking no, all right? The United States kills millions of people around the world, 6 million in the war on terror alone, and this Ukraine thing proxy war does not count as the war on terror. 6 million over the past 20 years dead by our war on terror. Like, there's no reason to get in line and say, I support them. And in fact, they are actually trying to make sure that Europe becomes fucking banana republics and that people don't have heating in fucking Europe and don't have jobs.
Well, and the US people will not gain anything. Like, you won't become richer off of this. We won't become richer because Europeans are freezing to death in their fucking homes. Like, we don't win from this. I mean, even if we did be sick still, but it's like, nobody is winning off of this except for the very, very top percentage of human scum. That's just heat or eat the rich. I agree. I'd prefer to set them on fire because
Wendy just commented, heat or eat the rich. Sorry for podcast
I don't think
listeners.
I don't think I want to eat them. Like, I don't like, I want nothing about them in or around my person, but I will totally cozy up to a bonfire that's like,
someone named Cobalt Duck says this is a defensive war, not a U.S. proxy war. Well, I will have you know, Cobalt Duck, that will be news to former CIA Director Leon Panetta and others in our U.S. government who have called it a proxy war. Leon Panetta said, I know we're not supposed to use the term, but this is a proxy war. And he said, this is a proxy war we need to win. But yes, it is absolutely a proxy war between the U.S.
Defense of what? I don't recall.
Well, if you believe,
I don't recall what we're defending in Ukraine or in Russia, which we have no.
If you believe the surface propaganda that like CNN or Fox News will tell you, it is Ukraine defending itself.
Then what are we doing?
End of story.
Then what are we doing there?
We're helping. We just love people, and we're just helping the peoples. Eleanor, why are you so cynical? Why not just appreciate the
U.S.
I
guess we were helping the peoples when we brought the Nazis to power in 2014 and precipitated several, actually, massacres of Ukrainian people at the hands of the Nazis that we helped bring to power in Ukraine. I guess that was because we love the peoples.
It was only 14 or 15,000 folks that the Nazis killed in the Donbass region since 2014. So it's not that many. All right, shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to the next topic here. And by the way, if you can only stay for a while and you're not going to make it to the end of the live stream, I hope you will become a member at leecamp.net. You'll notice there's no ads on this. There's no, I don't stop the feed to go, hey, let me tell you why I drink Red Bull, because I like the chemical taste and I like the way it makes me shit my pants.
I have never liked Red Bull.
And so I don't do any of that. We don't do any of that. And it's because this is only funded by you guys. It's completely independent. Many of you know I'm the most censored comedian in America. Lost my 250,000 YouTube channel and everything else. Banned globally. So become a member at leecamp.net. I would really appreciate that. But let's move on to Rikers Island. It really is a tropical paradise where a lot of people go to vacation. A lot of people don't know that.
Wouldn't it be nice if it were? So Rikers Island, folks might be aware, is a prison complex outside of New York City. And a recent report came out that 19 people have died in this notorious detention center, which is more than last year. So it's the deadliest year again. And so basically there's a lot to this, and this is a great article on Sheer Post that you can find via radindiemedia.com if you'd like to read the whole post. But basically what's been going on at Rikers is it's been over capacity for a long time. It's basically set to house about 3,000 people. And I'll point out that it's set to house 3,000 people poorly. Like no place, no cage is ever supposed to be like, oh, that's humane. So there are roughly about 5,000 people there, to the point where they're shoving people into shower stalls and forcing them to stay there. Obviously, there are multiple people to a cell that with no access to bathrooms, so they're just having to like defecate wherever they can. And so this is a human rights crisis and has been for quite some time. Already back in 2015, there was a court order to change the conditions, and every year since 2015, they have failed to do so. And there's just, it's kind of like the audit. It's like, oh, well, that's a bummer that you failed to do anything about it. And the person who's speaking in this interview, Ole Olurin, actually points this out that they don't care. They know about the conditions, but there's.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask, does it happen to mention how some of these people died?
Most of it is medical neglect.
The crocodiles in the moat outside.
You know, I've always wanted a moat.
Have you?
With crocodiles.
And are they like friendly to you?
Like I don't want a castle because I don't like having a lot of rooms. I want like a bungalow but with a moat.
Are they friendly to you, crocodiles?
Yeah. Like I feed them and stuff. You know, yeah. Okay. Like I wouldn't like they're not like cuddle buddies, but like we're cool. Okay. They wouldn't bite me.
Okay.
And they wouldn't bite my friends or anything like that. Just you know, like cops and stuff. So he points out, quote, laws only matter if they're enforced and who they're enforced against. And every time the monitor, and this is the monitor that's been charged with pointing out the conditions since 2015, every time the monitor is giving the update, nobody's complying. 18 deaths since last time. They're just choosing to continue to do nothing. So he points out people are the people, the powers that be are well aware of the situation at Rikers, but they're not doing anything about it. And he points out, you know, there are several things that could be done about it. A federal receivership, which is basically you transfer power away from the state momentarily so that people can really go in there. It's a nonpartisan group that basically goes in there and says like, okay, these are the problems and we're going to actually get it done. But that's not something that Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, is doing. I wonder why.
The cop mayor of, did you say New Orleans?
Did I? I thought I said New York.
I thought you said New Orleans.
God, anyway, no.
New York, yeah. But yes, former cop.
Yeah. And he has basically said that that's not something that he's going to do. And so basically, it's absolute. It's a human rights crisis. And the federal receivership is one of the things that they're talking about doing, would basically force that oversight into action. And basically it would either decarcerate. So instead of having 5,000 people there, they would have to have like the max 3,000. They would also move towards, because there's been on the books for quite some time that Rikers is supposed to close in 2027.
They keep promising to close it. There were other times they promised to close it.
I know.
Because it's one of the America's most horrific prisons, which is saying a lot considering we have a lot of horrific prisons. It's you know, we are the largest prison state in the world. People should realize that. Literally the largest prison state in the world, both per capita and per sheer number. And Rikers is one of the most disgusting of those prisons.
And one of the things, and again, you can get into the details of because I just don't want to like read at you for this whole thing. There are more details on what a federal receivership is and how like you could actually make Rikers less of a human rights violation. But really what needs to happen is it needs to be fucking closed. And here's one of the main reasons. And I think that a lot of folks don't know this. And I remember when I found this out at a protest years ago, and I was like, wait, what now? So there's a difference between jails and prisons. Even though people oftentimes use those words interchangeably, jails are where people have not been convicted of crimes, but where they're being held. Rikers is not a prison. It is a pre-trial detention center. It is a jail, meaning at Rikers, over 85% of the people there have not been convicted of a crime.
Wow. I had no idea it was that high.
Have not been convicted.
85%.
They are waiting.
I haven't even been convicted.
No.
And the famous, one of the most, I say famous, but one of the ones that was eventually covered in the media once he sadly killed himself was this kid. I think his last name might have been Bell. I mean, we can look that up
can't
easily.
remember, but I know who you're talking about.
But held for 3 years without a trial, charges, and he was arrested when he was either 18 or slightly under 18. And 3 years of a horrific jail without any charges, and ultimately released without conviction. And then sadly, whatever had happened to him in there
horrific
made him take his own life.
Yeah.
But 85%. I didn't realize it was that high.
So these are people who have never been convicted of anything, that are living in conditions that I mean, it's hard to even imagine. Although you could easily find people who have taken pictures and discussed it, and every time it happens, officials are like, "Oh, this is awful. We're going to do something about it," but they never do. And just to kind of zoom out real quick, 2 million people are incarcerated in the United States. Of those 2 million, 400,000 are being held pretrial. So that means 400,000 people have their freedom taken away from them without having been convicted of any crime.
So innocent until proven guilty. That's right.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Why? Is there a problem?
So I want to address one of the comments. Someone, I mentioned that we have the largest prison state in the world, largest number of criminals, not number of criminals, number of inmates. And someone said, that's because we have the most criminals. And I would like to take a moment to address that. First of all, you have the fact that Eleanor just mentioned 400,000 of them, meaning 1/4 just about, have not been convicted of anything. So you can't call them a criminal unless they've been convicted of something. Innocent until proven guilty. So that's part of it. Beyond that, a lot, I don't know if it's, I think it's up near 40 or 50% of everybody in our prisons have to do with drug crimes. Now,
non-violent.
Drug crimes are non-violent. If people have issues with drugs, they should be health issues, not crime issues. If you think that decriminalizing drugs would cause some kind of addiction mayhem where it's just people running through the streets high on crack, just humping your dog or something. Actually, Portugal decriminalized all drugs and now leads Europe in the least overdoses, the least, obviously, people in jail for it. It's all been massively positive and beneficial that Portugal has decriminalized all their drugs. So there's that. And if you want an example of another way to deal with someone using drugs, even if you were to keep drugs illegal, in Sweden, they still haven't legalized even marijuana in Sweden. Yet they keep people from doing it for the most part. No, people don't do it any more than in the U.S. And the reason is because you can have heavy fines for being caught with marijuana, but you're not put in a prison, because locking someone up because they had a fucking little piece of plant that they wanted to smoke and feel a little loopy is insanity. It's insanity. So that's some of how I want to address we have the most criminals. But then the number one way I want to address that is define criminal for me.
I was just going to say, what does that mean?
Is criminal just someone that, stole a wallet or stole a piece of clothing from a store? Or is criminal also the investment bankers that spend all day, every day trying to figure out how to steal more money from the average American people, the white collar criminals, the people on Wall Street doing cocaine like it's going out of style, the the people that created the opioid crisis that have killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, the people that market the carcinogenic things like Roundup herbicide that have killed God knows how many people. Are those criminals? Oh no, none of those are criminals. Those aren't criminals. Only criminals are people that steal a car, sell a joint to someone. Those are the only criminals.
I have to say on that note, in terms of like if we have the most war criminals, I agree.
Do you want me to type in that link, or you can type it in so I can show it?
Yeah, it's the capturedproject.com. And I actually know the folks who did this, some rad folks in New York. It's called the Captured Project. It's from several years ago. It's people in prison drawing people who should be. And so these are all
this is so great.
People in prison that were given, like, here's the CEO of Citigroup. Then there's
They're actually painting them very politely. Like they're not making their face look like a giant dildo or anything.
No, I know. There's the JP Morgan, there's McDonald's, there's Wells Fargo, Monsanto, Koch brothers, like people who have the blood of, like, put together millions on their hands, millions, being drawn by people who are in jail for everything from weed to murder and things like that. But it's like, I think I remember speaking to this guy, one of the guys who did this project, and he was like, he said, I can't remember who this guy was drawing, but he said, oh, this guy's responsible for killing, like 10,000 people or something with his drugs or his whatever.
It was probably one of the sack lists.
I killed one person and I'm stuck here for life.
Probably one of the sack lists. Oh, good. At least I see one of them they made look pretty evil. This woman here, chairman of Archer Daniels Midland. That's what I was saying. I was like, I mean, some of these are like way too polite.
Oh, president of FIFA.
Like, I feel like some of these should just have like a ball sack on their chin or something.
Well, but then that's mean against ball sacks.
Former CEO of BP Oil looks pretty. Looks like his face is melting off.
It does.
So at least we have that.
So at least we got that going on. But yeah, I mean, and this
Koch Industries fucking maniacs.
These are the people that should be behind bars forever for the security of the entire world. And yet the people who are in jail, drawing these people, are in jail for crimes that are either negligible, like owning a plant, or are legit crimes, but pale in comparison to these people.
Guys, I'm putting the link to that in the comment section. It's called thecapturedproject.com.
And it was a book as well.
That was a book.
Yeah. So, and you can click on the images to see the crimes as well. That's cool. So it explains, if you want to do that, like just click on someone.
I'll do one of my favorites, fucking Lloyd Blankfein.
So if you scroll down, so it was captured by someone serving 15 years for murder. So here's what Lloyd Blankfein's done: murder, bribery, mass deception and theft, obstruction of Congress, securities fraud, stealing taxpayer money. And this is several years old. And
honestly, those terms are polite. Like,
yes.
Like Blankfein was one of the leaders of the 2008 collapse, as millions of Americans were getting kicked out of their homes, which is essentially, for that family, is essentially burning down their house. So I'm going to use that terminology. Millions of Americans were having their homes burned down, which destroys families, destroys lives. They've actually linked, you can Google the study, they actually linked 5,000 suicides to the 2008 collapse. Now, that is a tiny number of probably the reality, because you can't always link a suicide to what went down in the collapse, but 5,000 at least. So he is a murderer. Now, they can't prove that in a court of law, but he is a murderer. So these charges are, yes, horrible, yet they're honestly the lighter charges of what this guy's done.
And, you can also contact the artist, by the way.
And tell them great job.
Yeah. But like, for instance, DuPont, the former CEO of DuPont, Ellen Kullman, Concealed evidence knew that their pesticide benlate caused health issues, for example, babies born without eyes, yet kept silent during trials brought by victims. Poisoning, responsible for more toxic releases than any other manufacturing company. Um, Public endangerment, illegally released harmful amounts of airborne chemicals, i.e., sulfuric acid, across the US. Contaminated groundwater on a massive scale, causing cancer and birth defects in multiple counties and countries. It's like,
we've really got to move on to
I
another.
know, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about. I was saying that to myself because I'm about to pull up another one. We got to move on to another topic. However, I have to highlight this one. CEO of JPay. JPay is the basically he sold a system to prisons whereas how prisoners pay for things like phone calls and internet and stuff like that, and it's crazy extortionary and just sucks as much money as possible off these prisoners. So they're paying like 30% more than they would if like an average collect call, even though they have like no money. So a lot of these prisoners will have like $10 in their account and they have to pay $9 to have a 2-minute internet phone call with
That's not very good quality.
Well, it's not good quality with a family member. So and I love that they did one of him. Couldn't get the details on him.
You scroll down. No, click on him and then scroll down.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah, Ryan Shapiro. Bribery, human rights violations, responsible for creating services and pricing incentives that encourage facilities to create rules such as video-only visitation, denying inmates the right to see their loved ones in person. Yeah. All this fucking garbage. Anyway, let's move on. We're running out of time. And for anybody who's here and was wondering what happened to the Rumble feed, something went wrong, so I'll have to upload it there later.
Oh, and I just want to share one last quote, which has not just to do with Rikers, but has to do with pretty much any issue. And it's a quote from who was the person who was interviewed about the Rikers issue. Quote, awareness isn't for the people that are perpetuating the injustices. They know. Awareness is for the public, because the people perpetuating the injustices only care about what the public is going to have a problem with, because that's how they maintain their power. And so I think that's an important thing to think about. Like, we don't need to let Congress know about the wars. They know. It's for us.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to sorry.
I just want to make sure that we have
the good news in.
The good news. Get the good news.
All right, let's do that first then.
Okay.
Let's do a little good news.
I really love this quote too, by the way. We were stronger than they were cruel.
Yeah, I love that too.
So you might not know about this because there are lots of potential strikes and strikes going on all over the place. But the New School in New York, their part-time faculty went on strike and won perhaps the most progressive contract in the history of the education industry. And I mean, congrats, first of all, to all of you who fought incredibly hard. And basically, it was this tentative agreement was reached on the 25th day of the strike. And the union has been calling it the longest adjunct strike in American history. And you can read on the Real News the list of, if you want to. So here's a list of the things that they won. I'm not going to go through it all, but basically it was a very important success story. And
family leave, guaranteed minimum base load of 2 courses, compensation for labor performed outside of the classroom, multi-year appointments that last 6 years instead of 3. Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
And I just want to point out one of the things
expands healthcare eligibility.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the things that happened in the course of the strike is that the New School really pushed back, of course, as any employer would. But it ended up backfiring because, so this strike was on behalf of the part-time faculty, but you had full-time and tenured professors that were also part of the New School that ended up siding with these folks. And so one of the things that I think is really important here is, yes, we need, if you are a striking worker, you need to have solidarity among your workers, but you really need to also have solidarity outside of just your one union space. And you might not always have that, and strikes can still be successful. But I think what really helped here is that the administration became a pariah for basically everybody at the school. And that really helped push it over the edge.
Mhm.
And I think that is a point that highlights how important solidarity is. Even if you're not one of the people striking, and it's not about you, you really need to show up in solidarity with folks that are striking. So, congrats to all of the part-time faculty at the new school. Fuck yeah, and may this be the beginning of something badass for all educators.
Absolutely. So there's some good news. I mean, people are winning. Like, I know we bring a lot of horrifying stories to people's attention, but it seems like every week we have some good news. So this is yet again workers winning, and this is why they're increasing interest rates in order to create a recession, in order to take power away from workers. They're doing the ruling class is doing their best to fight stuff like this. Okay, I want to get to. Is it all right if we get to one of the 44 reasons that capitalism is unredeemable?
Yes, let's end on that note.
Because it's been a while. It's been like a week since I've done one, and I try to end as many episodes as I can with one of these. And I always like to precede with this, because I know some people just hear the word, or words that capitalism is going to be criticized, and they go, "Oh God," and they turn it off. Hold on a second. Either you love capitalism, in which case, why not listen to an argument against it and go, "Oh, that's stupid," and tell me how it's stupid in the comment section. Why not do that? If you defend it so much, fucking do it and defend it. Or you hate capitalism, in which case you're going to love this, or you're on the fence, in which case, why not grab some more information? So no matter where you stand, even if you fucking love capitalism, hang in there for a minute and see what you think. See what you think. All right. So this is from an article. I've been ending a lot of episodes with one of these. It's by Mickey Cashtan. It's 44 reasons that capitalism is unredeemable. If I had the choice, would retitle it 44 Reasons Capitalism is a Death Spiral. But, she's more polite than I am. Anyway, this section of her 44 gets into physical violence of the capitalist system. And number 23 is land enclosures around the world during any transition to capitalism. And obviously, every society had to transition to capitalism, because it's only been around for a few hundred years. It didn't just arrive, and you had to go into it. Around the world during any transition to capitalism, people have been forced off the land through enclosures of the commons. This was widespread in Europe in the 200 bloody years of transition from feudalism to capitalism, and is now happening on an unimaginable mass scale in Africa.
It's awful.
And this is really an amazing point. You don't often hear, when people are either criticizing capitalism or endorsing capitalism, you don't hear them often bring this up, even the critics, that capitalism requires the enclosure of the land for profit. Usually you see the commons taken away, because all of a sudden everything has a price tag on it, right? Location has a price tag. The trees have a price tag. The water has a price tag. The land has a price tag. So when all those things all of a sudden have a price tag on them, the commons is a massive waste of product, of money. So all of a sudden, in order for something like Central Park to continue to exist, by the way, it's funny I picked Central Park, because
I know.
Central Park,
it exists because
in order to create it, they had to move, thousands of black and brown families off their land, out of their houses, and just destroy that in order to put in Central Park. But anyway, ignoring that, which also is saying something, right, about what capitalism does. But ignoring that, in order for something like Central Park to continue to exist, there's constant fights. And in other places where something's not as iconic, Central Park is now kind of iconic, but in other places where the park or the area, the green space, is not as iconic, it might last 20 years, 50 years, but eventually someone gets the idea that it'd be a really great idea to gut this, to put in high rises and cover it and cover it with these new whatevers, and all of a sudden we could make a lot of money. And this goes down to the tiniest little squares. You and I were in Washington, D.C. and for a long time, and we live near a little triangle.
Admo Plaza.
It was called Admo Plaza. Admo stands for Adams Morgan. Little tiny triangle. It's still, you can go see it right now. It's still under construction, but little tiny triangle that was left for the community. And it was left for the community for a reason, a perfectly capitalist reason. It was left for the community because a bank had been proven to be racist and have racist policies, redlining and the such. And when they were caught being racist, they said, you know what, to make up for it, one of the things we'll do is we'll give this little triangle to the community. This is our gift for being racist for a long time. So it's been like that for years. Recently, they were like, wow, you know the amount of money we could make by turning this tiny little triangle it's just a little paved triangle where some homeless people were sleeping often. And
there were farmers markets.
There were farmers markets.
Gather there for music.
Yep, there were all kinds of things that would go on, but it was just a tiny little square. And even that was too much empty space for the community and a loss of profit for the bankers, for the investors, for the builders, for the landlords. And sure enough, they fucking went in there. They bulldozed any homeless tents that were there. They put up fencing, and now they're building there.
And I mean, there's so much to say about this, but I had taken a screenshot of this the other day. And folks, I'd recommend that you check out the organization Survival International. I did an interview with them on Project Censored a while back that you can find at projectcensored.org. But they have one of their biggest things is in Africa and South America, the problem with conservation, the capital and imperialist and colonialist side of conservation. And this is one example here, a recent report, Congolese farmers barred from their own land for tree planting project by French oil giant Total Energies. So the greenwashing. So you have an oil company. Okay, we know what they do. They are buying up land in Africa that's not theirs to buy, and they are turning it into tree plantations so that they can make themselves look better. And they're forcing Congolese farmers who have been there since time immemorial off of their land. So this is colonialism. This is, of course, capitalism, because they're not allowed to go back to that. It's now enclosed. It belongs to this energy company, this oil company. And so this is like she points out, this is what's happening in Africa. Obviously, it's like a slightly different story than what happened in Europe, but I can also recommend The Many-Headed Hydra, a book about the start of capitalism at the end of the 1500s in Europe, predominantly in England, and how people fought viciously against it. And there was so much beautiful solidarity and so much beautiful struggle, and that continues, obviously. So it can be kind of depressing at times to read that and be like, oh my God, if those people had just won. There's also some beautiful parallels between, or not beautiful, horrific actually, between the advent of capitalism and the witch trials, because women had so much power in these communal spaces that were a threat, not just to capitalism, but to the church. So yeah, but I think like this is, like I said, there's so many different fucking threads I can pull on, and we can have this whole hours-long conversations.
We can keep going.
No, because eventually I'll just pass out and hit my head on the fucking table, and then you're gonna have to take me to the doctor, and that's.
But I'll get to blame capitalism.
You can blame capitalism, but yeah. So I think that those are some really important threads that I would recommend that you pull on in your own time. You could check out projectcensor.org to hear that interview with Survival International about the colonialization of conservation. Sylvia Federici has written about witches, the witch trials, and capitalism, and then The Many-Headed Hydra is about the commons being forcefully disappeared by the capitalists.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna wrap up, folks, but if you think you got $1 worth of content, I hope you'll sign up at leecamp.net. Also, I have a new episode of Most Censored News that is about the Pentagon, the massive financial fraud that's gone on there. They just failed their latest audit. The tweet I put out about that now has 10,000 retweets. So if you go, even if you aren't going to watch the video, which I hope you do, but at least go check out that Twitter thread. I'm at Lee Camp on Twitter. You can follow me there and retweet it. But yeah, really important episode. I think one of my best. And you can watch the whole episode at youtube.com/behind the headlines. That's where I house those. But in general, please click subscribe, click the bell icon, and become a member at leecamp.net. Also, what we do right here is a podcast called Common Censored. So I hope you will check that out if you're more of a podcast listener. And go ahead.
And yes, someone commented, I look tired. I do look tired. And I just wanted to take this moment. I hope you don't mind. It's a bit personal. I'm going to take this moment to do this because someone sent me a lovely email. And if you're watching right now, I really appreciate this email.
Very sweet.
It was a very sweet email asking if I had IBS, which for those who don't know, it's irritable bowel syndrome. Because I rushed away from the podcast recording. What was that, like 2 weeks ago or something? I don't have IBS.
I think it was last week.
Whatever. Time is fucking dumb. I don't have IBS. I have a 1-year-old. We have a 1-year-old.
We have a 1-year-old, yeah.
And because Lee knows how to work all the buttons on this live stream shit, I'm the one who runs and he continues the stream because without him, you would just be left in a dark void, hearing nothing but my voice going,
you know what happened is you probably do an hour live stream without actually going live. So you just do it to yourself.
Which I talk to myself plenty enough as it is. So I just wanted to, let you all know that I'm not rushing out for any other reason than because crying baby. So that's also why I look tired. And
so it's not irritable bowel syndrome.
It's not irritable bowel syndrome.
I've often said that having a 1-year-old is a lot like shitting yourself. I have said that.
But thank you so much for the email and the herb recommendations. I appreciate it.
No, that was a very sweet email. But yes, it's it's not that. I love people brainstorming all of the things that could drive someone to get up and run out of the scene. It could be like you saw an alien, like you.
And then I would have told you. Are you kidding? I wouldn't run out of here and leave you with the alien. What kind of jackass does that? Be terrible.
All right, folks, and if anyone
irritable baby syndrome, yes,
irritable baby syndrome is
that's what I have.
Absolutely true. And if anyone is watching this later on Rumble and you were like, what the fuck happened? I apologize, but I will be uploading it at rumble.com/LeeCamp, where these are normally all housed. All right. Thanks again. And keep fighting.
Good night and good luck.